Welcome to Beyond Rockets. Hope you're having a great day. My name is Clark Dunn and I'm your host. Get ready to enjoy some awesome conversations from Huntsville locals about cool work they are doing right here in the Rocket City. You can connect with us on social media at Beyond Rockets, and if you're interested in doing a podcast yourself, I'd love to hear from you. You can visit my website, beyondrockets.com today, or connect with me on LinkedIn at Clark Dunn. Sit back and enjoy this episode of Beyond Rockets.
Everything I liked except the way she talked to me every day.
This episode is sponsored by Yellowhammer Brewing. Yellowhammer is a local craft brewery serving Huntsville for the past 14 years. They are known for their premium craft beers like their T-Minus and Rebellion, but what you might not know is they also offer spirits, wine, seltzers, and non-alcoholic drinks. Next time you stop by their location, try one of their seasonal cocktails made with the Gemini Bourbon or the Yellowhammer Vodka, or try this year's big hit Pineapple Punch Seltzer. You can find out more information about Yellowhammer Brewery by visiting their website, yellowhammerbrewery.com, or visiting their tap room located at Campus 805. Well, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Clark.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you all y'all here today. Would you like to introduce yourself and we'll get started there?
Sure. I am Dylan Cavaliere. I'm the CEO and chairman of Altos Mensa.
Yeah, and I'm Ryan Saunders. I'm the CMO of Altos Mensa.
Yeah, and so before we kind of dive in and talk a little bit about Altos Mensa, let's talk a little bit about your background, kind of prior, talk a little bit about what y'all are doing prior to it, kind of when this idea kind of came about, because I know y'all are, I think you're still in college.
Yeah.
And so talk a little bit about kind of what y'all are doing and kind of led up to getting this started.
Sure. Let me kick it off and then I'll send it over to you. So I know you're familiar with the podcast that we had before, and so much of that, for those who don't know, it was conversations that we were having with entrepreneurs and creatives, and it really stemmed from this idea of we were having great conversations and we wanted them published. We wanted other people to be able to tap into our networks and the things that we were experiencing just being in this business world. And so my background right now, as you mentioned, I'm studying at Samford down in Birmingham. I'm studying finance and with the concentration in entrepreneurship. And so the podcast was my first sort of introduction into the business world. And since then, we've been looking at how do we take that sort of level of impact and to the next level. And so Altos Mensa, funny enough, it started exactly a year ago from the release date for this podcast. And that, is sort of the catalyst when it came to, for me, my other partner with the podcast, Sean, he's another co-founder of Altos Mensa. And it was really this energy that we picked up in the community and us wanting to share that, but does that kind of give you
I mean, I think it's interesting just to kind of see that progression. I was on your podcast for What's Next Huntsville.
Mm-hmm.
You also have a What's Next Birmingham. Talk a little bit about your involvement with and kind of what you were doing prior to that August 12th, 2024.
Yeah. So before I started with Altos Mensa, I'm an artist. So I've been making music since my sophomore year of high school. I've been painting. I just picked up photography like a year and a half ago. So I've just been pretty much dabbling my feet in everything artistic or creative possible. And that's what brought me onto their podcast, Dylan and Sean's. It was maybe 2 years now, 2.5 years now.
Probably 3 by now, yeah.
3, crazy. It's
yeah.
crazy. Yeah, I've known Sean since forever, and they started a podcast and they had me and my friend Henry on. He's like, y'all are artists, we're doing this podcast and we'd like to talk to you and have a conversation, chit chat about y'all's experience in Huntsville being an artist and that kind of thing and what you're doing. So that was my first little introduction to what their whole thing was. So fast forward maybe like 2 years from that, I guess, they approached me and they're like, we're starting this social club that we want to center around artists and entrepreneurs and connecting them and trying to build a network within them. And we want to kind of facilitate that. And they asked me if I would like to join. I was like, this sounds incredible. I'd love to join.
Yeah. And so this social group is really geared to young professionals, college students out of college, kind of in that maybe 20 to 30 range.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about kind of that intent to target those particular people. Is it because we fall in that demographic and it's an easy demographic to talk to, or was there kind of like did you see sort of the horizon of, hey, if we can get involved at this level, we can impact them when they get to this level?
Yeah, it's a really good question. That was a good point. And we want to talk and help people who we want to help, you know? I think, so much of, like, you ask yourself, what is a company? A company is a group of people surrounded around a mission, and coming at it from different angles and saying, who are we? Who do we want to affect? And you also ask yourself, who can we affect? Most of the time it's friends. It's having conversations just like this, saying, how can we get to that next level? What are you doing? And all of this, that, and the other. One thing I noticed is entrepreneurs, they have a responsibility to build up their networks. Otherwise, your business doesn't function. And so for Altos Mensa, especially the age bracket, it is exactly what you mentioned. It's those pre-professionals and young professionals that are wanting to get further connected to the established groups and people in communities. And so, talking Huntsville specifically, Huntsville's market of YPs is massive. Most people look at Huntsville and they say, this is a tech city. This is a city of engineers and rocket scientists and all of that. And that's not necessarily a narrative that we love, We need more of the entrepreneurship and the innovation. I think some of that energy is what we see in Austin, in Birmingham as well, in some of the top growing cities and the places where real innovation happens. And I think it all starts from the YPs. If you look at different periods in history, it was the young people and new ideas, them bringing these ideas to the established groups and saying, how can we make this a reality? Does that make sense? Do you have any points there?
Yeah, another big thing behind the inspiration was to make it fun, because there are a lot of organizations that help develop young professionals, but they're kind of boring, And we saw that was a gap in the market of, like, why don't we try to make something that we like? We like having fun, entertaining ourselves, and the best way to network with somebody is to get to know them on a more intimate level rather than like in a conference room or at the cubicles.
Yeah. I mean, I think the target for young professionals now in Huntsville is more apparent from other organizations than it ever has been. We had, before Campus 805 After 5 started, kicked off their season, we had them on the podcast, and they were talking about all the things that they were doing to connect with the companies that have interns coming in for the summer. Hey, these companies, organizations can have a tent set up for just their interns, catered by restaurants that are at Campus 805, and just finding ways to create the synergy, because at the end of the day, you need these people that maybe aren't in Huntsville, that are at school at Auburn or from Texas or wherever it might be, to say, hey, when I graduate, I could see myself being here.
Yeah.
And so as y'all got ready to launch it in August of 2024, talk a little bit about that first event from both of your perspectives. Talk a little bit about kind of the planning process of getting set up, figuring out what is it that you want to do as the first thing, and then kind of your roles leading up to it as well as day of.
Sure. I mean, so the first event was January. We didn't have the first event until January.
Wow.
So from August until then, it was really, let's get aligned on the mission and the vision of this, and then take those first small steps. But do you want to talk about the first event?
Yeah, so the first event, like, mind you, none of us had experience putting on anything outside of a house party or a house dinner party. So it was all brand new territory. So we got help from a friend of ours, Zoe from Nightlife. She helped us coordinate and organize everything. But man, it was a real task, because we had to think about a venue. We had to think about how many bartenders we would need, how many people we were expecting. We had to think about music. We had to think about security. We had to think about at the space if we had to move things around. So there's a lot of planning that went into it. And it was a great experience also.
Yeah, and so that first event, where was that first event at? Like, where did y'all kind of land as like, hey, this is going to be the venue for this first event?
The first one was at the Speakeasy.
Okay.
In Straight to Ale.
Yeah, Campus 805.
Yeah. And that venue is great. We love that.
Perfect. It's a perfect size for an event like what you were doing for the target audience you were looking at.
Right.
It's a place that they're probably they frequent themselves, so they're familiar with the space. They're familiar with Campus 805, Straight to Ale, and it's not so big as far as an event that it's like, okay, how do we afford this?
Mm-hmm.
How do we afford to be in it? How do we afford to pay for this?
Right.
It's like you're able to kind of accommodate for a small size, but also like if you had more people show up than you expected,
There's
still
plenty of room.
Yeah, there's plenty of room to get set up. So that first event happens January. You've had this August to January timeframe to kind of build the mission, the vision.
Mm-hmm.
What do you what the whole why are you doing this?
Exactly. Yeah.
You get to January, you do this event, you wrap up the event. Talk a little bit about kind of that looking back on that event. Say you're in February thinking about that January event.
Yeah.
What was y'all's opinion on that event? What went well? What didn't go well?
Yeah.
And then how are you able to kind of pivot for the next event?
Yeah. Great question. And we did a whole review of the event. And for the event, we had a whole P&L laid out. We knew what we were going to be spending, what we were expecting to make. And one mistake that I will be front and center about is we did overhiring to the highest degree. Okay, we had 18 people working this event. We had a DJ, we had
We had 3 security guards, 2 doormen.
I mean, the list goes on and on. And so this was one of those things where it was like, okay, we want to make sure that we're able to make this happen and we're not cutting corners. And so for the first event, that was probably the biggest takeaway is we don't need to have such a large investment for an event. It's about the people and it's about the connectivity. It's not necessarily about the event. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
And so for me, that was probably my biggest kind of takeaway from it. And
we definitely over-prepared a little bit, but you live and you learn. So it was definitely a good experience because we knew what we could get away with on the next one. Like having 3 security guards, we could have done with 1. Having 2 doormen, we could have done with 1. So running a business and running a social club that's putting on events.
Yeah.
I'm glad we had that crash course because just at least event-wise, it gave us a better idea of what to prepare for next time.
Yeah. And I mean, I think the running an event like that is something you don't know until you do it.
You don't know.
You don't know, there's nothing that prepares you. Finance classes don't prepare you.
Correct.
Being an artist does not prepare you. Yeah. It's a whole different beast of a thing.
And on that point, sorry to interrupt.
Very good.
But I think so much of business, especially being young folks, is you have to get rid of this idea that I throw myself into the deep end and I'm going to drown in the first 5 seconds. You can't think like that, And so for this, it was I'm glad that we have these takeaways because we made that jump. We threw ourselves into the deep end and then we figured out how to swim. Yeah. You know what I mean?
What was the response from the people that came to this event? Did you get obviously you have that feedback internally amongst the team of saying, hey, what went well, what didn't go well? We hired too many people. Next time we'll hire less. Right. But what was at the end of the day, it's really about the people that are there for the event and experiencing the social group. What was their response from that event? And what sort of takeaways did you take from their feedback for the next event?
Yeah. I mean, the first thing that jumps to my mind is, I got so many people who were like, when's the next one? We love this. This was so fun, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, given we did have a good DJ who's got a following in Huntsville, and we, like Ryan mentioned, we brought in Zoe, who also is very tapped in with lots and lots of business owners. But from my perspective, I got a lot of heck yes, we love this. When's the next one? And I think it was maybe 4 or 5 people who came out to the event became members from that. And so they said, absolutely, if y'all host more events, we want to come. And so that was sort of my experience with hearing from others.
Yeah, I had pretty positive reviews. I had a few of my close friends that came out and they had a good time.
Yeah.
And I met a few strangers to me and we had great conversation. We all had a good time together. So it was really reassuring that the jump that we did make into the deep end, kind of made us feel like, okay, we can do this again. And we just got to learn from where our shortcomings were this time and just do better next time.
Yeah.
Right.
So overall, it was a great experience. We got pretty good reviews. So
Yeah. And I think I saw maybe in March of this past year, you did an event in Birmingham at the Redmont.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that, because obviously you have a strong connection with Birmingham.
Yes.
This group is not just, social club is not just a Huntsville kind of specific thing. Your goal is to kind of reach between the two cities. Talk a little bit about that event. Obviously the audience, the target, the community is different.
Right.
It's a very different community in Birmingham than in
Concept
Huntsville.
was different too.
Okay, so so talk a little bit about how that event differed. I think you had like a speaker and stuff like that. Talk a little bit about that event versus maybe that first event.
Sure. So the first event was really the networking focus. It was, I mean, if you want to consider it kind of a networking night, you could consider it that. Plus a dance floor and a great DJ and, all of the fun things. But Birmingham, I think they have also a very solid community of YPs, and so much of them are in the whether it's UAB or Samford, and for me, that's where a lot of my connections come from. And so for that, we said, let's have a speaker and let's pick a professor that people don't often hear from about their own experience with these things. Because very often when you're in a business school, the professors are not necessarily speaking from their experience. They're speaking from theory. They're often speaking from what they've seen others do. And it's not always that personal experience. And so that was one key aspect. So yeah, it was a speaker event and it was focused on what have you done? It was almost like a podcast, like a,
so did you have a moderator for that, or is it just the guy speaking?
It was just myself and the other.
Okay.
So the professor, and that was sort of the quote unquote panel. And that concept played very, very differently. We had probably a third of the audience come out, that we had at the first event, like the one in Huntsville. And so there was a lot of learning lessons from that, just on concept, but also on city. So that was one thing that we said, all right, we have to figure out how these different concepts can work and where do we need that energy focused, right? And I think most of Altos Mensa, all the organizers and leaders of it are Huntsville based. And so Huntsville, it's a market that we know a whole lot better than Birmingham. Birmingham, it's only 3 of us down there, and we're all sort of focused on our own kind of cubbyhole of the markets, and so after that, we've sort of realized that Huntsville is where we need to focus this.
Yeah.
And we need to build this here and then figure out how we can expand.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing that drove us towards wanting to do things in Huntsville and Birmingham is that idea of the network, being able to connect Huntsville YPs with Birmingham YPs and build that whole integrated system. But we can't, again, we threw ourselves into the deep end and we said, okay, we have to do something different.
You have to understand the process and kind of the startup mentality of one before you try to scale and make 2.
Exactly.
And so not kind of having a full grasp, technically as we were recording this, you're not even a year into doing it.
Yeah.
And so, and you're not even, and even when it hits August 12th, you won't be a year from the first event. And so, making sure that everything is kind of polished up and nice,
right,
and it has a nice little bow on it, and then you can serve it to the Birmingham community well.
Exactly.
And so before we kind of dive into sort of the events and things that are happening this fall, I want to talk a little bit about how this has spawned other things for you.
Sure.
Talk a little bit about sort of some of the other ventures, because you kind of have your hand in a couple different things.
Mm-hmm.
So talk a little bit about kind of maybe I think some of the things started prior to this, but talk a little bit about how they work hand in hand.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's really building on the mission, and the mission statement is support and enable communities of young entrepreneurs and young creatives. And that was sort of the mission statement of what's next as well, is that was the spotlight. But it's really thinking about this vision and mission statement from different angles, creating and building that flywheel. And so I have a marketing company as well, and there's been lots and lots of connections that I've been able to make from Altos Mensa and from the work. But I think, like, even internally, it really has, at least for me, has shown me different ways in how do you lead and how do you organize. I mean, there's been so many pieces that we've learned from the experience so far, that have really grown us into better entrepreneurs, better co-founders. I think Ryan and I, like, we were good friends for many, many years before, but he's like my best friend now, and it's because of that. And, you know, him and I will often talk about the marketing endeavors that we're doing and going to meetings together. I mean, the biggest growth piece is the network. You know, we were talking about another social club founder here in Huntsville who we met with yesterday, and it's exposure. You know, it's finding out who are the movers and shakers, where is this motion in the city. But those are probably like my biggest, I guess, things that I've been able to gain through this experience.
Yeah, talk a little bit about your kind of experience, Ryan, as you've, you know, you're an artist and you've been doing this. How kind of this plays hand in hand with the social club.
Yeah, as you couldn't tell, I'm pretty quiet. So doing this venture has definitely made me come out of my shell a lot more. Because, you know, being an artist, it's really just me in my studio expressing myself in a controlled environment. But being an entrepreneur is a whole different ballgame. You know, you have to go to different events and meet people and relate with people, which for me is a little easy because I'm already used to expressing myself in that kind of sense of like, I'm just like you, or I can understand how you feel, like that empathetic kind of thing. But being an entrepreneur is like, you meet so many different kinds of people and you have to create a friendship or even just a business relationship. And it kind of forces your hand at that, because if you don't, then you're not necessarily going to fail, but you're not going to progress to whatever level that your ambition feels you should be at. So that's one big thing that I've taken away from this entire venture, is just kind of step outside of yourself and bring yourself back down to a more human level and just talk to people and then connect with people, because that's the only way that you're going to build your network and expand.
Yeah. And so as this episode is releasing on the day of the 1 year of even thinking about this concept, people are listening to this on August 12th. They have the kind of the fall looking for the kind of the remainder of 2025 on the horizon. What are some things that people can be on the lookout for events and ways to connect? And maybe if they're listening and they want to join, give us all the places that they can find you and learn more.
Sure. So this year, like I said, we've learned so many things about what it is that we have to offer and how can we impact that community. And so around this time where this podcast will be releasing, we will probably have already launched the card. The community calendar has been launched. We're launching that too. We've built up, and just to kind of frame the card, the calendar, the big ideas behind each of them is the card is basically the membership card, and it's about access. So access to events and discounts. So those are the two biggest pieces of the membership right now. And so if you want, like, I think the value prop for the card is, if you want to get connected to people, to real people, real companies, in the community, that's probably the biggest piece, through discounts and through the event access. And then the calendar is really a free resource that we're putting on. So we've made great connections with a lot of the Huntsville business scene, especially the ones that are having events. And the calendar is sort of a free resource for that. So it's already been launched, and that's something that people can immediately go and use completely for free. But yeah, around this time, we'll be launching the card. It probably is already going to be out in some people's hands. And then what else? Am I missing anything?
Really, the main things that we've been working on as of late are the calendar and the card. So if you guys go to our website, altosmensa.club, you can find the calendar there, or on our Instagram at altos.mensa.
Yeah, altosmensa.club.
Yeah. Then you can find the calendar there also.
Yeah, and we'll be sure to have links to everything in the episode notes. So as these events, more and more things started get planned, or more and more things are happening, people can find links in the episode notes to your website, links to your social media to get connected with you. But I appreciate you both being here today. It's been fun. It's exciting to see what you all have done in such a short amount of time. And I think we'll probably have you on in a couple of years to talk a little bit about, where it is then.
Absolutely.
Because I think it's continuing to grow and continuing to develop. And I think, as any sort of venture happens, being the biggest skill set in anything is the ability to pivot. Yes. And so if you can see that, hey, it didn't work, or hey, this wasn't necessarily what we anticipated, being able to pivot and transition to something else is always a huge thing. But I appreciate you both being here.
Of course, thank you. And if you don't mind, I'd love to give you your flowers. What you've built with this podcast is a community. It is a very, very similar thing of what we're doing with Altos Mensa, except you're not taking credit for it. So I want to say thank you for what you've done. I mean, there's been so many conversations, so many business owners that I would have not ever heard about, because most business people are focused on their stuff.
For sure. Well, I appreciate it. Yeah, it's been a fun 6-year journey of doing this thing. So I talked to a lot of people, met a lot of cool people. Yeah. And so it's been fun to kind of be that connection piece between people like yourself that are getting into the business, getting into doing this stuff, to maybe somebody that's been in the business a little bit longer. Right. But we'll be sure to have everything in the episode notes. People can connect with you, find out more information, and hopefully go to one of your events.
Absolutely. We'll see y'all there.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Beyond Rockets. Don't forget you can subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen, and on YouTube at Beyond Rockets. Be sure to follow me on Instagram at Beyond Rockets to stay up to date with new episodes as they are released. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed.